Welcome back, and we'll just get started on to the next topic, as I said, which is around adopting analytics in risk management. This is a topic of huge interest to me. I think it's a topic that almost impacts everyone because there is no way that a company can manage its risks, manage its uncertainties, leverage and do good business, leverage data and do good business if they aren't strong at analytics. One can keep running away from it, but that's a reality. You just don't have a choice, is how I would put it. It actually has enough data points just in this one slide, which will tell you why is it so critical. 8 out of 10 CEOs expect complexity to increase in the next 5 years. So the relevance of that is none of us have a choice of not trying to understand what's the complexity of data, and therefore, how do I analyze it more meaningfully to be able to have the right interpretations and be able to take faster, bolder, well-informed decisions. 64% is the percentage where people, financial outperformers, are more likely to use analytics to evaluate talent supply on a demand on an ongoing basis. Even something like talent supply, talent management, as one would call it, is actually now having to embrace analytics in a big way. Enterprises that applied advanced analytics have 33% more revenue growth and 12x more profit. Organizations that embrace are more than 2x likely to outperform their peers, and top performing enterprises that use business analytics 5x more than lower performers. So you'll see these data points are just far too hard hitting for anyone to kind of, I think, any longer question or challenge, is data analytics indeed that relevant or not? So therefore, I'm going to just move on to what's the role. To me, it's got about 4 or 5 key things. One, it's an enabler for problem solving. You don't deal with, okay, I checked 50 samples, I looked at so many transactions, and from that, I found 2 problems, and therefore let me solve them. Analytics lets just look at all the data that I have for a 6-month period, a year, 2, 3, 10 years, whatever. That's the power of data and analytics put together today. It allows you to extract insights, as I call it, as I keep saying. A good analytics output, as in a front-end visualization of it, is something that's got to almost speak to the reader of it. It just tell you precisely where your problem points are. There are different types of analytics. You can do historical trend pattern analysis. You can run it near real time. And based on all of that, you can almost start building out predictive analytics as well. But I'm going to focus more, I'm not going to go too much into the predictive analytics world, but at least in the world of risk management, there's enough and more of historical and real time that's already happening. You got to run some of your analytics. You can go crazy running analytics if you didn't have a certain amount of risk prioritization. So you got to look for what concerns you. Is it fraud? Is it regulatory non-compliance? Is it business efficiency? Is it your stock positions? Is it your receivable position? So you got to know what's your priority, what are your bigger risks, and therefore you sort of apply analytics for what really sort of matters to you and hurts you. And performance-focused analytics. How do I analyze which product selling, which SKU is selling, which market's doing well, which sales guy is doing well, which region's doing well, which BU is doing well, where am I incurring more costs, how do I get more profitable? So stuff that FP&A, financial planning analysis, has done for the longest time. But I think today's day and age, there's so much of analytics that can be done that you can get those insights in a matter of literally seconds and minutes. And then you are able to, as business leaders, take far more informed decisions. And I think always keep sort of this is absolutely my favorite tagline, which is faster, bolder, better informed decision making. If that's what you're looking for, then analytics is a large part of it. What does it do? It provides you a much stronger assurance, firstly, from a risk management perspective, that things are working fine. I can check whether my whether every material that I receive in my company, goods receipt note, does each one of them have about the date, the gap between my purchase order date and GRN date, is that equal to my supplier delivery time or not? And I can check that for the whole year. What's the relevance of it? Well, I one shot know that people aren't placing telephonic orders and regularizing a PO just a day before the goods come in. Now, historically, people would have possibly just sudden, check 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 samples. Now I'm saying I can check this, throughout the year forever. I don't do nothing. I just know my process will run right. Correct. If I'm looking at trends and patterns of, are there individuals who are posting manual journal entries every month in certain accounts that they shouldn't? Are those the same individuals? Is that my same business unit? Is that my same office? Are some of them having abnormal entries on weekends? I can just go on and on. So trends and patterns to me is one of the most powerful ways to actually figure out or find out red flags well ahead of time, because it just points you to where things possibly are not right. You obviously can take far more risk intelligent decisions because you now have analyzed patterns to know which product worked, which market worked, what price point worked, what was the age bracket of individuals that liked your product more, what was the sort of gender diversity, was all kinds of stuff is it can be analyzed to get yourself to say, okay, I'm going to launch a new product. I know what my risk factors are. I've protected myself based on all the data I've analyzed. So the point I'm making is I'm going to go through each one of them, but the whole aspect of our data analytics is today there is so much data that's available and it's just increasing by the day with more and more stuff being done sort of on e-com platforms and being online. The quantum and volume of data available is just gone up dramatically. And therefore, companies who are able to use analytics smartly, will de-risk themselves very significantly across processes. And I can assure you, you can run a ton of analytics around your procurement. What products have you bought at what price, which part of the world are you getting a lower price for? Can you do consolidation of procurement for certain parts from a particular region and then sort of distribute it around? On the sales side of it, what kind of discounting is working? What products are you ending up possibly discounting where you don't need to discount? Are certain discounts sort of still failing and impacting your market image that you keep discounting, but that really doesn't add to your volumes? So there is almost no arena of business where smart analytics can't be applied. On attrition, what sort of after how many years in the organization are typically people leaving? Exactly where are they going? How many are going for what reason? One could say, well, we've done this for the longest time. Yes, the difference is that people have analyzed data for the longest time, but the extent of data that's available, the ability to correlate data from very disparate data sources, the ability to deal with inconsistent data fields, all of that has evolved so dramatically in, I would say, in the last 12, 18, 24 months, that the power of applying analytics, call it data analytics, control analytics, risk analytics, whatever you want to call it, has gone up exponentially. And we have to also understand that with technology development has come the whole ability to actually use things like OCR, optical character reading, or machine vision of a much higher accuracy level. With that, you bring in the fact that there's language neutralization that's come in, right? So you bring in machine vision, which allows you to read an underlying document. You bring in language neutralization, and then you add in the ability to deal with data from different sources. And now you start applying analytics. Can you imagine how much more powerful it can be than it was before? So, you'd hear that passion in my voice when I say that this is an area where everyone needs to spend a lot of time trying to get better at it. These are just a few examples. There is regulatory compliance where uh, there is time that the regulators are spending actually to get better at knowing how to do analytics, because they now believe that by doing analytics they can get pointers towards which are the companies that possibly have a corruption risk or an AML risk more than others. So you have to always remember that it's not just the company which is sort of starting to get better and smarter at how to deal with data. You've got regulators out there who are actually watching companies more smartly than ever before, doing a ton of data analytics as well. Can you imagine our income tax authorities trying to apply a gazillion data analytics to figure out where is possibly greater quantum of tax leakage happening? These are things that will become very real because the government's also embraced data in a big way, and I'm really hopeful and confident that sooner than later you will find them using smart data analytics a lot more. It allows you to take much more informed uh, sort of decisions again, in terms of operational risk. It allows you to measure performance more effectively, which suppliers performing well, which team of yours performing well, whose collections are better. There is, again, it's just at a click of a button when you get all of that information versus saying, okay, I think we should analyze this. Let's meet after 2 weeks. That's typically what would be the sort of, if you were a management meeting 10 years back, you said, okay, you know what, I think I want to analyze my national sales, and they would say, yeah, sure, we'll collate all the data, give us about 3-4 weeks, we'll put it together and we'll set up a meeting with you. Now, someone who's smart enough, who knows how to pull data from all the different platforms. I'm not even suggesting that that company has one platform. They might be on SAP, and they might be on Oracle partly. They may be on Workday somewhere else. But doesn't make a difference. They could partly be using Salesforce.com. Doesn't make a difference. Today, people who know how to extract data and do analytics, they could possibly say, fine, let's meet day after. We'll have all the data sort of available. Some actually have it so well that they could have said, okay, fine, why don't we log into our system and we'll sort of go through the dashboards and let's try and take some good decisions. So obviously there are different companies at different levels of maturity of data analytics, data mining, which is part of data analytics, because you got to mine your data first. You got to cleanse it, you got to sanitize it, you got to mine it, and then obviously put in smart analytics on top of it. Fraud risks, definitely, there are enough and more fraud patterns that can be picked up using data analytics. Are there transactions? Are people making transactions on a Sunday and saying they were basically doing business meetings? It's not just a tiny little fraud. It's an indicator of what that individual or that set of individuals in that team are typically or are from a headset perspective. So everything that couldn't be done earlier because you had challenges with data is what analytics is equipping leaders to take faster decisions on. You can decide on, you can simulate your models and actually see what products work better. Financial reporting, there is so much of analytics in the financial reporting, a closed space. Analysis of account reconciliations, and analysis of manual journal entries, analysis of sales reversals. There's so many of these analytics that you can just perform. Completeness check of purchase orders, cutoff checks for purchase order. There's so much that can be done. Not just all the documents, purchase orders, source acquisition note, production document. You can just do all kinds of checks at the click of a button to get comfort on the numbers that you're talking about being reported. Areas where this works is, again, across the board. You can figure out which business, if you have multiple lines of business, which business is going through higher degree of attrition. Are there trends and patterns? You can find out that in certain business, and we've picked up frauds like that. I have been involved in picking up frauds where dummy employees have been hired, or they've been hired with skill sets which are very different from what were actually required. And you suddenly realize that people were churning out every 6 months, because at the end of the 6 month period, the hiring agency didn't have to provide a free backfill, right? Now, when you when we sort of would do these audits earlier, historically, it was a lot more difficult to find out. But now you can put in smart analytics where you don't even let that event happen. You will keep checking this on a reasonably ongoing basis. Someone won't even try and do it, right? Transactions on P cards, procurement cards, as we call it. There are so many cases where we figure out that certain individuals who are given procurement cards or P cards uh, are misusing it for transactions that are not meant to be on P card. And just keyword search, which is a very normal part of analytics, allows you to pick those up. And obviously, you need to know what keywords to put in there, but you definitely can sort of pick those up pretty quickly and pretty effectively. These are certain absolute real challenges, and I think, as much as I've said that there is nothing more powerful than analytics, these all four are very real challenges, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. But people, both from a availability perspective, talent perspective, uh, trained resources, big challenge. Data, I think, continues to be one of the bigger problems because companies have multiple systems, legacy systems as well. And obviously, everyone understands that for running analytics, at the heart of it is the quality of data. So quality of data, can I access it? Is it in a standard format or not? Does lend itself to some problems? And I think the other new sort of angle that's come in pretty substantially in the more recent past is this whole thing of privacy, right? What data can I access? What can I not? Which country? What's PI? What's not PI? If I can I mask this data? What do I need to mask it? At what stage should it get masked? So yes, I think data is definitely an important second aspect to think about. I would say tone at the top is just again equally important, because if management does not believe that they are truly going to use analytics from an insight perspective, I don't think it's going to happen, because this is not just it's fine. We'll see what data we have. You've got to be committed to saying, I want to get to a spot where I know everything that I need to at the click of a button. I will therefore invest in technology. I will invest in people. I will ensure that I can deal with the fact that there are certain data challenges, but yet get to what I want. So companies, I can say this from my consulting experience, that there are enough companies where our standard conversation is, oh, you know what, our data is such a problem. You've got to wait to do anything that's meaningful in analytics. And surprising, there are companies where leadership is basically pretty clear that I know that we've got a huge data challenge, but guess what? I don't have a choice. I have to sort of solve for it. And hence, here's our plan. Tell us how can you guys be relevant in this journey. So tone at the top, definitely solves has to be required to solve for all of what you see on the first three, which is people, technology, and data. And this one's a real quick one on the fact that this is a journey. This is a maturity curve. Companies will go through a maturity curve on analytics. This is a very standard sort of maturity curve where things are done manually or transaction wise. Sometimes at ad hoc, gradually they get more repetitive, and finally it's an absolute continuous and optimized process. So the ideal state is when you get to that continuous-ish to optimized level of analytics, where you get periodic dashboards, periodic alerts saying, here's a problem, here's why it's happening, so that management gets time to actually invest in true problem solving versus actually going through the whole haystack, as we say. It's getting to the needle in the haystack, which is critical in analytics. So that whole maturity curve of not eliminating but optimally reducing false positives. That's all you can do in analytics. You will have false positives. That's a reality. But how do you get to the optimal level of false positive? All of that takes time to mature, but it does take a fair amount of commitment in terms of leadership to say, I am going to go stay on this path, because otherwise it's pretty easy to, because it's not going to give you results day zero. It will give you results soon enough, but it takes a little bit of time. One of the last things I would say is that you can also use data analytics very, very effectively to recover certain excessive payments you may have made to your vendors. It's actually a solution that many, many global providers have, which is either called vendor recovery or post payable audit or whatever. Now, that you may wish to consider at some stage, depending on what your roles in organizations are, to say, hang on, if I use analytics this way, if I use that to get some money back on the table, which is excessive payments that I've made, I managed to recover it, then you could kind of almost use that as a fund or an internal funding process to then reinvest into analytics in other areas. So I'm just giving one of those ideas of how do you get yourself the resources that you need to go down this path of smart analytics in organizations. With that, I want to sort of end this session and with a quick break, switch over to the next one. Thank you.